Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. Tonight we are really pleased to have offensive coordinator for Franklinton High School, Coach Matt Hughes. Coach, good to have you. Thanks for joining the show.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, look, I'll get into a bunch of stuff, but one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch base with you on and get your view on, because I get to cover all these teams and I get to see all these communities and stuff. One thing that I'll say that it's very accurate in how it works. Schools, administration, to the coaches, to the players, to the communities that all seem to be on the same page, they are all successful in their own way, right? So touch a little bit on that. We kind of, from Coach Salt to the community to the administration, obviously having Shane Smith, he's a legend, from the high school coaching ranks. How does that help you guys as a program?
It helps in so many ways because everybody is so deeply invested in what we do as players and coaches. It's very easy as a coach to turn to your players and say, hey, listen, when they fill up these stands on Friday night, the people in these stands really care about what happens. It's not just lip service. They're completely invested, just as we are completely invested. And because of that, we truly do feel like their support carries us through, that it's a journey that we are all on together. I think the most important thing, and I think it's at any level of football, you see it in the NFL, you see it at the college level, and certainly at the high school level, is the alignment. You have to have administration aligned with the administration of the football program, which goes from Coach Salt as the head coach to myself as the assistant head coach and the offensive coordinator, down through the rest of the assistants, booster club. Everybody's got to be aligned. And I think the thing that aligns us all is just a common passion for this program, for what it's done for so many in our community, and most importantly, from our standpoint, what this community has done for us. And it really does make it easier, much easier.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really well said. One thing that I enjoy is the interaction with the boys, and I'll say this: you've got a really great group of young men. I know when I met with Coach Salt in I think it was July, right? We went and had coffee and kind of did the team preview, and he talked about so many things that you guys do outside of the football field and outside of the locker room, right? With, I think, your Tuesday night stuff that you do. Kind of touch on that a little bit and what that means to you guys as a program as a whole.
It means a tremendous amount. One of our coaches, and I think he's referring to Wednesday nights at First
Wednesdays.
Baptist Church with Coach Drake Westmoreland, who is he is the youth pastor over at that church. And so he's very, very deeply entrenched in our community because faith is such an important part of this Franklinton area. It's really important for the entire parish. And what is good for us is not only to have a guy like that on staff, but to have a head coach who really understands the benefit of that, and to have other people around the program, the adults in the program, who understand the benefits of that. And so all of it is important. I think the biggest thing that we have to battle here is that you have a community that is in need of something for young people to do.
Yeah.
It's a rural area. It's not like we have a movie theater right down the street that we can just waltz into and see a film. We don't have a ton of, really great. We have some great restaurants, don't get me wrong, but we don't have, what you might see in Covington with the Chimes and Outback and Applebee's. Some of those chains, you don't see those chains around here. And so it's very important that our kids have somewhere to go, have somewhere they can belong, and have things to do. And the parents, the adults in the community and surrounding the program provide that, from Coach Drake, his Wednesday night services, on down to the people in our community that are parents that will have the kids over at their house, just cooking dinner for them. We have a former quarterback, Terrence McGee, who takes he wouldn't even want recognition for this, but he takes a few of our players out to dinner every month. It's become a monthly occurrence, and he does it out of the goodness of his heart. So it's just such a great dynamic to be a part of and to experience, and so important for the life of our program.
Yeah, well, look, we always say that the result is only predicated by the process, right? And I think all of that matters so much in what you do in the community. And once again, kudos to you guys. You've got some phenomenal young men who are very respectful and always appreciative of what we do for them. So it's appreciated. Let's get in the football part a little bit here. You know, I'll say this, Coach would want me to say this. He's excited to have you on tonight. He kind of wanted to spotlight you in the offense a little bit and what you've done. The last 2 years, obviously having Jacob plays a big part, but schematically, you guys are so good. One thing I want you to touch on a little bit, in something I'm interested in is, I don't think people understood how good Cy was last year
Yeah.
and what he did offensively for you guys. It was really impressive. And I get to, I kind of nerd over it and watch a lot of tape, but, watching him and watching your offense last year compared to this year, it's a lot different. Right. But
Oh, absolutely.
touch on the backfield a little bit because, I'm really high on Ricardo, right? Ricardo, he popped off early in the year. And then recently, Friday night, you had Raiden Rayborn, which to the fans, we will update his stats. We have corrected that already, so we'll get his stats for Friday night updated. But touch on those guys, and I know you've played some other guys back there as well, right? But how have you kind of used multiple guys in that spot this year to make up for Cy?
Cy was such a blessing because he had a diverse skill set. He had tremendous hands. And so catching the ball out of the backfield, the ability to make people miss on a swing route, on a shoot or an arrow route, those things are so simple, but so important. And there's a lot of hidden yardage there. Being able to take him out of the backfield, get into an empty set, and utilize his skill set there some ways. But also just the ability to be tough and hard nosed and run the ball inside, hit the
Yeah.
ball on the perimeter. Having the ability to make 90-degree cuts on, outside zone. I can remember there was one play last year against West Feliciana where it was a much greater angle than a 90-degree cut. We're running outside zone to the right and tight end wing set, and he cuts it all the way out the backside B gap. The ball's not supposed to go there. I mean, realistically, you're not thinking that the back can see that and get there, but Cy could,
Yeah.
and he was tremendous in that aspect. I knew going into the year, and I think I might have said this to Gridiron Football, I knew we weren't going to replace Cy with one person. It was
Right.
going to have to be a by committee approach. And I also knew that we were going to find a way to score points, and the engine that drives that is Jacob. But we were going to have to find a way to, by committee, put together some semblance of a running game. We were going to have to. If you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, he talked about recreating players in the
Yeah.
aggregate. You're not necessarily trying to. You're not going to get another Cy Austin, or in their case, in Moneyball, you're not going to get another Giambi, but we're going to recreate him using 3 or 4 different players, and that's
Yeah.
essentially what we're trying to do. Each of those backs has a unique skill set. Raiden Rayburn is a good inside runner who has tremendous vision. Tremendous vision. Ricardo Burris is a kid who maybe doesn't see it quite as well, but boy, oh boy, his ability to accelerate is
He can scoot.
outstanding. And if he gets in the open field
It's
and
over.
he's at full bore,
Yeah, you're not
you're
catching.
not catching him.
Nope.
You're not. So, obviously those two guys are kind of a 1-2 punch. We have utilized Jaden Burkhalter back there in some wildcat situations at quarterback. That's number one, who's a very good receiver, as you know.
Oh yeah.
But he also has an ability to run the ball. He's athletic. We've gotten Demicus McLean involved in the run game on some perimeter stuff in recent weeks, who's a very good receiver, but also just has a knack
Yes.
for the game of football. He's so good, so instinctive.
Coach,
Um,
I call him phone booth quick. Like I've
he
seen
is.
some hitches that he's like people will triangle him right on one
Yeah.
side of the field, and you've got Jaden on the same side. Like one of those guys will be in the slot, one of the guys will be outside, and they'll triangle Demicus, and it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
he just makes people miss. It's incredible.
He does. And it doesn't look like, if you watch his top end speed, nothing's gonna blow you away. You're not gonna see anything that makes you think, wow, it's a track athlete. But like you said, he's phone booth quick. That's a perfect description,
Yep.
because he is so good at accelerating and moving with a subtlety that makes him very difficult to tackle.
And look, we could sit here all night and talk about Jacob. I'm not going to do that for your community because Jacob's Jacob. I'll just say this. And I talked to Coach early in the season in the summer, and he was, you know, passionate as Coach can be about how good he was and how little attention he was getting. I hope we've highlighted that kid. He's played through some injuries. He's played through some changes, up front in some different schemes that you guys have run, and he still produces night in and night out. And to me, the thing that I've been impressed with him of, the bigger the game, the better he is. It's wild to see it from what Coach calls and what you consider is another coach on the field, right?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And like you said, I could talk about the kid all night. I have a special relationship with him. I've coached him since, as I would say, since he was a baby. But really, to me, when they're freshmen, they're
The
babies.
babies, that's
So,
right.
I mean, it's been 4 years now with him. And I struggle to think about not coaching him anymore, moving forward. So I won't dwell on that too much and just stay focused on the process. But I will tell you, he's special in so many different ways. His instincts are tremendous. He studies the game of football. He loves football. He watches it. He talks it like an adult, like you and I might talk
Yeah.
it. He's very perceptive. He has the ability to read and understand people, and therefore that makes him a good leader because he knows how to put all the pieces together from a personality standpoint. He
Right.
understands what makes a kid like Jaden tick, a kid like DeMicus tick, a kid like Dalton Freeman, our excellent tight end tick. Kids up front for us, David Moore and Holden Galloway and Eli Blackwell and Caleb Bright and Buck Givens, all those guys. He knows what makes them tick. And that makes him a great leader because he knows how to relate to each of those guys. And I think the thing that he does that is most impressive to me, you mentioned it, he has the it factor, and you could see it when he was young. Some of it is innate, and some of it is maybe just a great desire
Yeah.
to win and succeed on the biggest stages. But he just has it, whatever it is. It may well be inarticulable. I've never been able to really explain what it is, but you know it when you see it, right?
If
And
we
he's
could
got
coach
it.
it, if we could coach it, we'd be coaching at the highest level, right?
Oh my gosh, coach it.
If you
If we
ever
could coach it, I'll tell you, life would be so much easier, wouldn't
you ever figure that out. And look, I'm glad you touched on Dalton a little bit. Earlier in the year, he didn't have as much action, but it looks like the last few weeks that's kind of picked up. Those two big catches against Pine and that great game that he had. I'm glad you touched on the offensive line. Following some other stuff, and I'm a Nichols guy, so Bo Webb losing the future governor of Louisiana, and boy, can we use one now
it?
to select LSU's next coach, right? That's what we need.
That's
Uh, just,
right.
just what we
That's
voted
exactly
for.
right. We were talking about that today. Boy, I tell you, that's an
Just what we
interesting
look. Talk
memory.
about top to bottom on the same page, right?
Right.
Oh my. So I'm glad you touched on those guys. One thing that I want to do, and we'll get into next week's Friday's matchup a little bit, but one thing that I want to touch on, and I don't think people understand this, and this is another topic we talked about before the season, is your schedule. If people don't know about 7-4A and 8-3A, just schedule those guys, right? And I did some stats before today, and I knew them off my head. But one thing that's impressive to me is you've lost 3 games. You lost to Covington, Jules Sumner, and Pine, right? Or I'm sorry, and Lakeshore. Those are all really good teams. What we're finding out is they're some of the best defenses around too, right? And that only sets you up for the playoffs. Covington, one of the best defenses in 5A. They're giving up 13 points a game. Jules Sumner's leading everybody with 9 points a game given up. Pine's giving up 11 points a game, and Lakeshore's giving up 15 points a game. This is not 1985 high school football. This is 2025 high school football where points are scored and you have to keep up. So talk a little bit about that schedule and how it prepares you guys. I know last year you won some close games, and I don't think your record is indicative of anything different, right? Some of those games can go either way. I myself, I think of this internally, and I haven't vocalized it yet, but I think a lot about Cecilia last year, right? And it's another team that goes to the Dome, loses some games in the regular season, end of the season kind of find their way again, and then they're tested because they played some good people throughout the season, and they go make a run in the playoffs. But talk about that schedule a little bit and how it prepares you for that playoff run.
First of all, you couldn't be more right. I mean, you have hit the nail on the head from top to bottom, Mike. It is very difficult. It's taxing. It is a grind week in and week out playing this type of schedule. It really is. But we wouldn't have it any other way because, as you said many times, it prepares you for the playoffs.
Mhm.
And listen, it's do or die every week. You can't afford to have a bad week of preparation. You can't afford to take a week off. You can't afford to take a week to slow down a little bit and catch your breath. And no, it's you're playing a good team the next week too. And I think that's so important for our kids to experience because that's what the playoffs is like. You just don't have a lot of time to breathe. It's,
Nope.
you win a game in the first round and it's incredibly exhilarating, but then 24 hours later you better have your attention turned to the next opponent or you'll get beaten and then
Yeah.
you'll be crying the next weekend.
No doubt.
So it's such a pressure cooker and there's nothing more exhilarating, yet there's also nothing that's tougher mentally. So I think playing the schedule that we play sets us up there. Coach Salt has a non-negotiable for scheduling, and I think it makes so much sense. He wants to schedule schools that are like us. We're not going to run away from competition, but we are going to play schools that are demographically, geographically, logistically very much like us.
Mhm.
And so when you look at the schools on our schedule, that generally is what we have. That's generally what we play. We do like to play a couple of 5A schools just because Covington's a traditional game for us.
Yeah,
We
it's a
played
great.
them for yeah, it's pretty well established by this point. So
Yep.
I mean, if you're Franklinton, you play Covington every year. If
Yep.
you're Covington, you play Franklinton. So that's a traditional game. When you look at a school like we've had Fountain Blue, we've had Denham Springs. Well, when you're looking at those two schools, do you want Fountain Blue on the schedule? Do you want Denham Springs? Which one of those schools is more like us? Well, we'd have to say Fountain Blue. Neither one of them are really like us, but Denham Springs is very much not like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
little further away.
A lot not like you.
Right, exactly. And so I think when you look at our non-district schedule that Coach Salt has put together, it really does set up in that we're playing very competitive teams, yet teams that are like us. And I think that if that's what you're going to play in the playoffs with the way that the system is right now. So
Yeah.
there's no better way to schedule, and it's such a genius way to think about it, and yet extremely simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I talked to Coach Sears over at St. Paul's, in preseason because they jamboreed John Curtis I'm sorry, they scrimmaged John Curtis, then jamboreed Rummel. They had Brother Martin on the schedule. And I'm like, Coach, what are you thinking, right? And he said the perfect thing, which is enlightening. He said, Mike, I want to know what we're not good at. I have to play people to figure out what we're not good at early and where we need to improve. That way we can work on that throughout the season. And look, they're hitting their stride now, right? So I think there's so much value in that. And then today in the power rankings world, you've got to go play people, or you're going to win 8 games and sit there and be on the road the entire playoffs.
That's exactly right. How many teams do we see year in and year out that are 7, 8 win teams and yet they're 17, 18, 19 seeds?
Yeah, and look, I'll say this now. You guys are sitting at 5-3. You're the top team with 3 losses in the power rankings, sitting at number 7. So, a few things go your way here and, you still look at a bye, right? So, things are looking up. And I have to touch on this. I forgot to include Amit in that group.
Oh, yes. Yes, they were quite good. They are quite good. They're always talented. And again, that's another traditional game. We've
Yep.
played Amit for so many years. We did lose them for a few. And then got them back recently, and it's been great because we enjoy playing those guys. It's a traditional game. If you're Franklinton, you play Amit, no different than Covington, no different than for the longest time it was the same with Bogalusa.
Right.
We had Bogalusa on the schedule for a long time, and so those traditional games you always like trying to circle back to when you can.
And we talked about that on our show on Sunday. Coach Crutchfield, he's going to have that group back up and running. And 8-3A seems to only be getting harder. It sounds like Loranger is going to be in 8-3A next year. And who knows, Salmon going to 4A, that might be you lose Loranger, you gain Salmon. It's like, gosh, dang it.
Yeah, I know. No rest for the weary. No rest for the weary.
None. And Coach Soper's, got that program at hand and kind of on the rise. They're playing really good football and playing sound. Leading into that, touch a little bit on the matchup with Loranger. Coach Powell over there, taking over for Coach Messina. Not much changes. He was the offensive coordinator. They've got a great running game. They like to run it, but they can throw it when they need to. Rylan James was out last week. I don't know the status of him for this week, but they've got 3, 4, 5 guys that can really run the ball and run it well. And you know what you're going to get, right? You just have to stop it.
They do. Those guys are all outstanding ball carriers. One of the things that I think impresses me about them is that they are very multiple formationally. They have been for the last few years, I'm assuming since Coach Powell was there. But I will tell you that those guys they've got a few athletes that can really hurt you. You misfit a run, you don't make a sound tackle in space. They have a few players, as you said, that can really carry the ball.
There's no doubt.
I think that what they do also is because of their multiplicity from a formational standpoint, they put a lot of pressure on you. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of pressure to get aligned defensively and to be sound, to make sure that you don't get – our defensive coordinator, Coach Burris, taught me a very long time ago when I was a very young coach, don't get out leveraged, don't get outnumbered. Those were the two golden rules of defense, right? Yeah. And so making sure that we align correctly is very important. It's always important, but when you're playing a team that's this multiple, it's even that much more so, because you got to make sure that you're sound against all their different looks. I think defensively they're multiple as well. We've seen them in a 3 and 4 man front. They have the ability to do that without changing personnel. I have seen them do it with changing personnel as well. So I think it just depends on who they want on the field for that particular week. Maybe they're looking at individual matchups, etc. They're very aggressive in their approach. They play a lot of man coverage on the back end. At least they have, over the past few games, what we had on them. And they've got some guys back there who can play a little bit. So it's going to be a challenge for us. We always look forward to playing this team. It's always a tight game. I can remember 2 years ago when they played us. I don't remember. It was Coach Salt's first year. So, 2023 played us here. They beat us on a late, field goal, close game, high-scoring game. Last year, extremely muddy, very, very sloppy game here in Demon Stadium yet again. I think we won that game 28-14. That was one of our lowest point totals of the year. Mm-hmm. And so, it's always close with this team. And our kids know these kids, as they do with a lot of these teams that are in this area. So
they all play together growing up.
yes, exactly. They've played against each other. They're familiar with one another. And so it's going to be a challenge for us, but a challenge that we're looking forward to for sure.
Yeah, and look, I have to mention too, they've got a young man on the outside, Tydarius Holland, who when he touches it, that's number one that you see.
Number one, he's very good. He's very good, to say the least.
He can scoot, and he plays defense a little bit too. But I love the matchup because I think you touched on it earlier. Playing teams like same type of kids, same type of environment. They're a little bit gritty. They're not crying and looking for mom in the stands. You guys got some different boys, and that goes a long way.
And drinking water out the hose pipe, Mike.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Look, you guys still play on grass fields. It makes you tougher than some areas already.
No doubt. Yeah, we've got to pay the price for that at times, but just with the rainy conditions. But man, I love having natural grass. It's great.
I love the smell of it, the dew on the ground, the moisture. I like when it rains. You get to play on it. You guys you have to worry about ant piles at practice and games. There's all kind of stuff that you get to do. Look, striping the field is always fun, right? Painting the field.
Oh,
You know,
it's the worst. It's the
yes,
worst.
yeah. Well, I saw Hannon got a robot recently, and the robot works all day and just paints the field. So
It's amazing. We have a man that has helped us for a long time, been a part of the tradition of our program for so long. His name is Vincent Chauvin, and he does a great job of getting that field painted for us week in and week out.
I
And
love it.
we couldn't be more thankful for him. So I'm glad to give him a little shout out there because he works his tail off and does a phenomenal job for us.
We talk about it. It takes the community, right?
It does.
Coach, I've got the passing stats up here, and I know we touched on Jacob a little bit. One outlier that I like to think about is your style of offense, and I don't necessarily think that means you don't run the ball. I think you do a lot within the line of scrimmage in your passing game to simulate some run game stuff, right? Touch on that a little bit. I know Jacob said 191 attempts, but he's completed 130 balls. That's a pretty good percentage.
Very good percentage. I think that you have to have the ability to control the ball with the passing game. So there are different things that you're looking for depending upon whatever concept you're running. And so there are concepts, and really this thought comes from Bill Walsh. There are concepts within your offense that are possession passes. There are concepts within your offense that are design shots. There are concepts within your offense that are coverage beaters. There are concepts within your offense that are ISO routes. So like I'm going to try to isolate my guy on your guy, and whether it's my best on your worst, or maybe my best on your best if you're matching my personnel. But either way, I'm going to be throwing something to my best guy, and yet you have to have an answer built in for if they overplay that side, if you get some sort of vice or some sort of bracket coverage. I think because of that has forced us to evolve in the passing game. If you think about what we did last year offensively, it was much more run oriented, but we could throw the ball when we needed to.
Yeah.
My general philosophy has always been throw to score and run to win. I inherited that from and now he didn't come up with it, but that was sort of Coach Shane Smith's philosophy.
Yeah.
And he was my mentor. And I learned so much from him, and he used to say that all the time. And so that was my general modus operandi, throw to score, run to win.
Yeah.
So we're going to run the football, and we're going to be effective at that so that we can control the game. But we, in the course of doing so, are always probing. We're always looking for that explosive. If you look at the analytics, there's no question that the second most relevant factor, the second most relevant.
Oh, looks like Coach Hughes dropped out here. Let's see if Coach Hughes comes back on here. Real quick, one thing I want to talk to the audience about, and I know that Coach Hughes touched on this, but how dynamic the offense is at Franklinton right now is really impressive. It's different to say the least, but the way they work and the way they do it goes a long way. It looks like we've got Coach back here.
I think I lost you there for a second,
Coach,
Mike. Sorry, man.
We're back. That's okay. Look, sometimes you blitz and you got to react to it.
See.
So we're good. We're good. Let's see. It looks like you're black screened again. Let's see if we get Coach back here. But yeah, one thing that impresses me the most about Franklinton is really the ability to throw the ball, as Coach talked about, is part of the run game. I think of it a little bit like basketball and a point guard just getting the ball into the playmaker's hands and letting them do what they do, and they do that well. So, Coach, before we lost, you were kind of expanding on that. Finish up a little bit on one thing that I've been impressed with, and I won't say it's new, but it's unique, right? And I got to see you guys live on TV. I think it was the Fontainebleau game. I think we played Thursday night, so you guys were Friday night. I can either go to a game or I can watch 5 here in my office. So I'm usually watching 5 games. One thing that I really like that you do is you put 1 and 3 on the same side of the field a lot, and you put your tight end on the same side of the field, and even on the short side of the field, right? I love that because you basically eliminate two really good corners from playing those guys, and you're forcing nickel or a linebacker. Are you looking at kind of that coverage matchup? I know one theory a lot of people have is they don't call plays, they call numbers, right? Doesn't matter what the play is, one's got to have the ball here, right? Talk about that a little bit in your approach there.
Oh, there's so many thoughts that come to mind. First of all, I would say, sorry, I lost you there for a second. I had a phone call incoming, and it messed everything up. But
No worries, we got
I,
we got you
it,
covered.
it's so important to be able to generate explosive plays in modern football. If you can't generate explosives, then you can't score. And that's in the NFL, that's in college, high school. So, that's what we did last year. But really this year we've kind of evolved to, okay, we've got to add a few more concepts. We got to be a little bit more diverse because we're going to see a little bit more diversity in coverage, because maybe we're not going to be quite as effective at running the ball early in the year, but we will be able to control the ball with our passing game. And that's sort of what we got to. And so that forced us to maybe evolve beyond even where we were last year with the passing game. Even though we were very good at it, we're even better and more diverse and more well prepared this year. What we do with our receivers a lot of times is, yes, obviously you're looking for it's very simple. What does he do well?
Yeah,
What does my guy do well?
yeah,
And so I'm going to ask Demarcus McClain to do certain things, but what I ask him to do is going to be very different than what I asked Jaden Burkhalter to do. And
yep.
what I asked Jaden Burkhalter to do and Demarcus McClain to do is going to be infinitely different than what I asked Dalton Freeman to do, and so on and so forth. And so I think it's really just about finding the strengths of your players and understanding their weaknesses as well, and maximizing strengths while trying to diminish or minimize their weaknesses. And that's coach speak. I know it sounds so simplistic, but that is the guiding principle that goes to so much of it. I think it's difficult to cover both of those guys, on the same side of the field.
Yeah,
Um, but I also think that there have been times where we've benefited from splitting them. Without going into too much detail, there have
yeah.
been times where we've been able to manufacture a certain coverage look just from splitting those guys, on opposite sides of the field, and then having Dalton Freeman and another kid who's been a very good player for us this year. He's only caught a few balls, but they've been at critical moments. Is Colin Stewart,
I was going to
number
bring him up,
81.
big Colin on the other side, and he's athletic. Like he's not just a decoy out there. He can catch the ball, and I know you've done some red zone stuff with him, and I've seen some fades maybe that he's caught and gone up and made plays. So I've been impressed with him as well.
Very proud of him, man. He is a program kid through and through. From the get-go, that kid has been coachable. He's always wanted to be really good. He wasn't going to light the world on fire with his athletic ability, but he's got enough to make him a good football
Yeah,
player. And he is not, like you said, he's not just a decoy. He's far more than just a possession receiver. He can make plays, and he's made a
yeah,
few plays for us this year in critical spots. We'll go to him on third down some. I don't. There have been times, without being too specific, there have been times where I have tried to play away from certain guys in certain situations, third downs, for example,
yeah,
third and longs, third and mediums.
yeah,
I don't think that way with him. I don't
yeah.
have to play away from him, and
Nope.
it just makes you so much more diverse. And also, it makes you diverse whenever you can have him and a tight end on one side, and then to the field, into the boundary, and then to the field, you might have 1 and 3,
Yeah,
and so it really puts a strain on you coverage wise, because you better figure out how to deal with both sides of it. And look, we've had some teams that have played us much differently than they've played others because of what we do offensively. I do think that what we do in the passing game is unique. I think a lot of what we do in the passing game is unique. Not not maybe completely, but the way we structure it, the sequences, the way we call it, those sorts of things are a little different. And I do think it's pretty sophisticated. But again, it all goes back to those kids have to have an understanding of football to be able to execute. And the quarterback in particular is the engine that drives it all. Without
there's no
him,
no
you
doubt about
can't do
that.
any of it.
Well, and look, I use a baseball term a lot. Pitching backwards, is really important in baseball, and throwing off speed stuff early. And that's one of the things you guys can do is you can run anything you want in any down and distance, because you've got that quarterback that can do it, right, and get out of plays and get into plays really well. Well, look, Coach, we appreciate your time tonight. Really look forward to a great run from you guys. I tell everybody that Superdome's the goal, but if we can get to Thanksgiving, it's different. It feels different that Thanksgiving week when nobody's in school and you're practicing in the morning and going home and spending extra time on it. If you can get to Thanksgiving, it's a special place to be, and not a whole lot of people make it. And I look forward to a big run from you guys. Thanks for everything you guys do in the community, supporting us and what we do. We cover 26 teams now, and I'll give you guys credit. You're one of the best in providing us information and allowing us access to the program.
Well, let me say this. It's an open door for you, Mike. It's an open door for you and your team. We appreciate the heck out of everything that you guys do because it's about the kids to you. And I knew that you were a coach because nobody goes into coaching and does it for the money. Nobody does it for the money. It's not at this level. This is done for the kids. It's about promoting the kids. It's about what's best for them. And so I am just so appreciative of what you guys do. You do a great job. Our fans, boy, and our parents, boy, they eat up that content that you guys put out on a weekly basis. So thank you so much for everything that you do and for your coverage and your interest in our team. We appreciate it so much.
Well, look, and for the Franklinton community, we're about to start our soccer coverage and boys and girls basketball. We're going to move right into baseball and softball after that. So it's only going to continue to get better. I tell my wife all the time, be careful. I really love this and I could live in a box and do it. So, don't get me too mad on one night,
I'm the girls' soccer coach as well, so I'll be talking to you about that too.
I'm excited about it. So yeah, we'll be reaching out here in the next week to actually get that ball rolling and get a bunch of content and start rolling on that. But once again, appreciate your time. I'll say this: you make simple look really good. So you describe it as simple as what you do. I don't think there's anything simple about it. You do it better than anybody else. So you guys keep it up, and we'll be rooting for you guys for sure.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Coach.